Hi, I'm Jimmy Colefax, and this is The Story. We're back with more of Eric Scatterbo chatting with Phil Fusco, who's sharing his adventurous life journey. We'll pick up the story as Phil's working as a business executive in Asia while striving to maintain his Christian witness.
In the business world, because I had my Christian principles, in Asia, it's not uncommon that there's a lot of bribery that goes on, or what they call passing the envelope. And because it goes against my values and principles, doing a deal for a very large resort development in Indonesia, it came to that moment where we had to sort of close the deal by passing an envelope. And I couldn't do that. It went against my grain because I'm a little bit righteous, if you know what I mean. Like it's when you're born again and you allow the Spirit to renew your mind, which is what should take place as a Christian, you should think and operate slightly different, and anything outside of that jars with you. And so we need to be mindful of the renewing of our mind, that we actually do think and approach things differently. In other words, it empowers you to manage temptation differently. And the scripture says that sin takes place first in your mind. You think about it before you act on it. So you have more than enough time to see what's coming and to put it into its place. And so I could see what was happening. And so I went to my boss and I said, look, this is where it's at right now. I'm not comfortable doing this, but it's not for me as a servant. I saw myself as an employee, as a slave, as a servant. That's how I sort of saw it. And our job is to serve our master as best we can. And that's how I approach being an employee. I'm here to serve my bosses. And so I said to him, it's my job to make you successful, and this deal's for the taking, but I can't do what has to be done to make it happen. It's on your shoulders as the owner of the business to make a decision. I'm here to serve you. But I said, I would like you to come to the next meeting and you decide what you want to do. And so my boss came, had a different value system and didn't mind doing it. And basically he did the deal. So we won the deal without me losing my integrity. And as a result, they then, because they trusted me with how I handled this diplomatic situation, basically then spun out the marketing department into a new company and made me the CEO of a new marketing company.
Oh, wow.
With my own team. And so that's, again, is another example of if you live by your principles humbly and you're transparent, that the Lord can take a negative and actually turn it around into a positive. And then that came to the end of the 1990s and the Asian financial crisis came, and basically everything stopped. And I climbed to the top of the pyramid as a CEO. I was 35 at the time, and then tipped off the top of the pyramid like everybody else in the late 90s with the Asian financial crisis.
Wow, you kind of went from hero to zero, just like that?
I did that, yep, and did it again over the next 10 years. So from there I went back to Australia and then climbed my way back up, and where I ended up in Dubai. And then from Dubai I was then offered a CEO role back in Singapore 10 years later, which I did, and living in a 2-story penthouse on Orchard Road and in a serviced apartment there. And then the global financial crisis came. And again, the whole thing happened again 10 years later.
Wow.
And that brought me back to Australia a second time, again, nipped off.
Yeah.
It happened twice. So I've sort of been around the circles and seen it. But then that sort of brings me to the fourth turning point when I came back to Australia. And the fourth turning point is when coming back to Australia, I always then went back to my early thoughts about politics and basically being a minister in the community, serving the community, not in the Christian community, but the world community as a light and salt. And so going back, I went through this sort of wilderness experience again, trying to reestablish myself back in Australia, been away for so long. And one thing led to another. I was introduced to the Australian Christian Lobby, and they were having what they called their Lachlan Macquarie internship. And I was their first round of interns through that. I'd been a member of the Liberal Party in Australia for about 30 years now, and I joined when I was in my 20s. Again, part of my broader thing about being in the marketplace. And anyway, one thing led to another. I'd gone for pre-selection 4 times, and finally on the 3rd time I got it. Over the years, every time I was kicked off my perch in business overseas, I'd come back and go try to get into politics, thinking that I had something to offer. I'm not really big into young people going into politics early. I think people need to prove themselves in life, and then you bring that worldly experience in to serve the community, drawing upon your gifts and your talents from a wise point of view, because most people in politics don't have the wisdom to discern. They don't have the knowledge or the training to actually discern their advisors.
Yeah. So how did that go?
Well, I finally got endorsed. So I was the candidate for the federal seat of McEwen, and that was when Scott Morrison won the federal election. I didn't win the seat. It was a safe Labor seat at the time, but we were the one of only 2 seats in Victoria that had a swing to us, and that was one of them was mine. So the party said, look, would you go again in 3 years? And so I said, I'd be happy to, because I felt that was a calling into the marketplace to serve. I felt that was where the accumulation of my writing, my speaking, my worldly experience and gifts of wisdom, I suppose, came together, and where I felt comfortable. But then 3 years later, when it came to pre-selection, that was the 4th time, all those that wanted me to do it then backstabbed me. They, for some reason, backed a newcomer.
Oh, so basically it was politics. You weren't picked because of personal politics. Could you say that?
Yeah, basically the factions want to have their own man that
Yeah.
they feel they can control. And I was pretty much a mature person that had his own, convictions. So I didn't get the backing, and it was a shame. When I did the pre-selection and I gave the speech, the president said it was probably the best speech they've ever heard. And it was important to me. I knew the wind was against me, but I had to run the race as best I could, and so I gave it all. It's important to me that I know that I've done the best I can. Whether you win or lose is not important. It's how you run the race. And so when that door closed, I was a little bit confused, because I thought it was the accumulation of where my life's journey was going to go.
Yeah, so you thought everything was leading up to that, and then boom, it doesn't happen.
And then the door closed.
Yeah.
And I was in senior positions in the Liberal Party on policy level and what have you. I was chairman of their Media and Communications Committee, standing committee, and devised a marketing plan to help the party.
So once again, you're at a crossroads.
So I'm at a crossroads. So the door closed for politics, and I'm thinking, well, Lord, what am I to do here? I felt like it was a kick in the stomach. I was carrying the pain. I could feel it. And so I said, well, I've got responsibility. I've just cast the net and see what happens. So I went and put my CV out there, and there was a position with a national media group looking for a senior marketing role. And over a series of time, it went for like 6 months. It was a long journey because we were in the middle of COVID at that time, and I couldn't travel interstate. And we had this series of Zoom anyway. One thing led to another, and they invited me to join them, and which is where I am today. And I just felt so humbled at the time, going through what I'd been through, that the Lord had given me a chance to get back on the horse. But I felt he brought me full circle back to when Stan Moulton at Word Australia basically asked me to join their ministry. And I thought, oh, this is really strange how the Lord plays this out, that all these years later, literally 35 years later, I'm now back in the music media industry.
Radio
Christian
ministry.
media music industry. Yeah. And so I've had the honour to be here for the last year now, and obviously try to bring my gifts to help and serve where I can here. And it's a great crew that I'm with, and we're having a lot of fun here, and we're only scratching the surface. There's so much more we can do as a national media ministry into this great nation of Australia.
Yeah, so originally you thought your calling was to be a Christian in the secular marketplace. And now, unexpectedly, you're back in ministry. Do you think this was where the Lord wanted you all along, or why do you think you worked it out this way? Do you have any idea?
I have learned not to presume to know all these answers.
It's just the way it worked out for you.
Exactly right. I realize I'm just a soldier waiting for his next orders. So I try not to get ahead of myself. As a planner, as a marketing person that does business plans, I'm very much a planner and a thinker, but the Lord has showed me not to get ahead of myself.
Yeah.
And just to trust in him. So there's a great scripture that I like called Proverbs 16:9, and it says, a man's mind plans his way, but the Lord directs his step.
Yeah.
And so for God's plans, he's allowed me to have this responsibility to be here, to serve him, and all I care about is being a good witness, to be the best I can with what he's given me to do at this time. And I'm sure the Lord has his plans for how long that is, or what he might want to do next. That's up to him. My job is just to be faithful in my darkest hours. The only things that got through me was just to realize that I didn't have to understand all the answers. And I've been up and down. I've had money and I've not had money. So I understand the cycle, and I've been through that twice. But that's normal for people in business. It's a normal thing. So for people out there, don't be fazed by that. It's just about the journey, about believing yourself and keep going. Winston Churchill once said that nothing lasts forever, not even our troubles. And you just keep going. And there's a classic line, End of Gone with the Wind, the famous movie where Scarlett O'Hara stands on the mountain in silhouette looking at the burnt down Tara and says, tomorrow's another day.
Tomorrow's another day, yes.
if you're out there and you're not sure where you're at today, and there are certainly troubles, I just say, just trust in God, look to Him, don't get ahead of yourself, have faith, because that faith will carry you to the next day, and you'd be surprised, expect the unexpected, allow God to be God.
Yeah, so it's been quite a journey, ups and downs. You thought it was going to be one way, then it's another way, and now you're in full-time Christian ministry with a nationwide radio ministry. Well, it's beyond that. There's more aspects to it than just the radio part of the media. And do you feel you're really using all your gifts and talents now?
I do. When I was young in my 20s, Chandler McLeod, as an executive HR group, they did 8-hour psychological tests. Mm-hmm. And they said, Phil, if we summed up clearly comes out there are two different roles which are perfectly fit for you. And I was in my 20s. Yeah. They said the perfect match for you would be, Vice President of Marketing for World Vision. So in other words, head of marketing in a ministry. Yep. Or the second job would be the host of your own TV show. And that's what this group said to me when I was in my 20s. And now, all these years later, in my late 50s, here I am, head of marketing in a national ministry, and it's also a broadcast media-focused organisation. So
with plenty of video in there as well.
We're launching video this year.
Yeah. Wow, quite a journey. Thank you so much, Phil Fusco, for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you, Eric. Great to be here. I wish all your listeners all the very best.
Well, that was quite a journey that Phil Fusco has been on and continues to be on today. As we heard, he's been led to both be a part of the secular marketplace and to now be a part of a full-time nationwide Christian media ministry. And if you haven't guessed it by now, yes, that ministry is Vision Christian Media. So to find out more about Vision or to make contact with Phil, if you have any questions, you can reach him through our website, vision.org.au. Once again, that's vision.org.au. Finally, we end with this verse Phil just mentioned a few moments ago. It's from Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9, which says, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." And we have certainly heard how that has been true in Phil's life, as the Lord has directed him to be used in many different ways in several places around the world. And we are very thankful that the Lord has now led him to use his gifts and talents, as well as his vast knowledge and experience at Vision Christian Media. It's truly a blessing having him on staff and sharing his wisdom. Well, thanks for joining us for this 3-part series chatting with Vision's Phil Fusco. Until next time, I'm Jimmy Colefax, encouraging you to share your story with someone today.
The story. Just another way Vision is helping you look to God daily.